But tell me, man, why do you believe that Jay and Puffy is close, even though Jay lawyer came out and said they're not?
Because Jay-Z and Puff was given an assignment.
Now, if the government is going to mandate that they are responsible for your well-being, they have to ensure the safety of your well-being.
It's no secret that the world of hip-hop has always been as much about drama and power struggles as it is about beats and bars. But what if some of the biggest names in the game weren't just rivals? They were allegedly working together to control the entire industry. That's exactly what Gene Deal, Diddy's former bodyguard, has been claiming in recent interviews. If what he says is true, the narrative of East Coast rap might be darker and more calculated than anyone could have imagined. So buckle up, because what you're about to hear might completely change the way you see the icons of hip-hop. Let's set the stage. The late 1990s and early 2000s were a critical time in rap history. The East Coast had cemented its dominance with artists like Biggie, Nas, and Jay-Z redefining the sound of hip-hop, while the West Coast, led by icons like Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, and Tupac Shakur, was pushing back with its own brand of gritty, streetwise storytelling. It wasn't just music, it was a battle for cultural supremacy. And yet, according to Gene Deal, Diddy and Jay-Z, two of the most powerful figures in East Coast rap, weren't just trying to win this battle, they were allegedly working behind the scenes to suppress their own region's talent.
And that was to destroy East Coast rap. And what I mean by that, and I know people gonna be like, yo, Gene is out of his mind and everything like that. Check this out, brother.
Deal claims that Diddy and Jay-Z were given an assignment by unnamed industry forces to keep rising East Coast rappers from gaining too much power or influence.
Why?
Because, according to him, record labels were tired of paying massive advances, sometimes as much as 1 million units of currency or more, to New York artists, only to see smaller labels in the South generate even bigger profits with much smaller budgets. Southern labels like Cash Money and No Limit were creating platinum-selling albums with a fraction of the investment, and the industry saw an opportunity to shift its focus and its money away from the East Coast.
And they was getting a lot of money to make albums and records. When they had guys down south that these labels was paying $250,000, $300,000 on record deals, and these guys was bringing back platinum albums and everything like that. So what they had to do was they had to keep.
So what did Diddy and Jay-Z allegedly do? According to Deal, they used their influence to control who got signed and who didn't, effectively shutting the door on up-and-coming artists from their own region. He claims they deliberately kept artists like Cameron and Beanie Sigel from reaching their full potential, ensuring that no one from the East Coast could rise to challenge their dominance. And it wasn't just about money, it was about power. By keeping playing field small, they could maintain their positions as gatekeepers of East Coast rap.
New York rappers down. That's one reason, other than the Irv Gotti that 50 was going through, and the poison they was putting in about 50, he had to go elsewhere to California, or with Jay and not with Dre and Eminem to get a deal.
But it gets even deeper. Deal suggests that this wasn't just a business decision. It was part of a broader plan to dismantle East Coast dominance in hip-hop altogether. According to him, the industry wanted to shift the spotlight away from New York and onto other regions, and Diddy and Jay-Z were allegedly complicit in making that happen. It's a shocking claim, especially when you consider how much these two have benefited from their association with East Coast rap. But if Deal is telling the truth, their success might have come at the expense of countless other artists who never got their shot.
They did not want East Coast rappers to get big. They were suppressing all new artists that was coming out of New York. Jay and Diddy was doing that.
Let's take a closer look at some of the names Deal mentioned. Cameron, for example, was one of the most promising talents to come out of New York in the late 90s and early 2000s. His witty wordplay and distinctive flow made him a fan favorite, and his Dipset crew was poised to take over the game. But according to Deal, Jay-Z allegedly blocked Cameron's rise by refusing to support him within the industry. This claim is backed up, at least in part, by statements Cameron himself has made over the years. In interviews, he's spoken about the challenges he faced trying to break through, even as his popularity grew. Was Jay-Z really behind it? It's hard to say for sure, but the timing is certainly suspicious.
As him and Diddy was given that deal, we gotta keep these East Coast rappers down. Cause down south rappers, Cash Money, No Limit, Ludacris and them, they was taking little money and bringing back more money and making more money for them.
Then there's Beanie Sigel, another artist who seemed destined for greatness. Signed to Jay-Z's Rockefeller Records, Beanie was a powerhouse lyricist with a loyal fan base, but his career never quite reached the heights many expected. Deal alleges that this was no accident, that Jay-Z deliberately kept Beanie from becoming too successful, perhaps out of fear that he would overshadow the Rockefeller boss. Again, this claim is difficult to verify, but it raises questions about Jay-Z's role in shaping the careers of those around him.
So they was placed to destroy the East Coast rap. And then, along came a somebody. They was about to bring East Coast rap back. And there's nothing they could do about it. And this kid was finna put East Coast.
And it's not just Deal making these accusations. Dame Dash, Jay-Z's former business partner, has also spoken out about the way Jay allegedly handled things at Rockefeller. In interviews, Dash has accused Jay of prioritizing his own interests over the success of the label's other artists. He's even hinted that Jay might have been working against some of them behind the scenes. While Dash's comments are often dismissed as sour grapes, they do add another layer to the story Deal is telling. But what about Diddy? According to Deal, the bad boy mogul was just as involved in this alleged scheme as Jay-Z. Deal claims that Diddy used his power to suppress new talent, ensuring that no one could challenge his position as the king of New York. This isn't the first time Diddy has been accused of questionable business practices. Over the years, multiple artists have come forward with allegations that he manipulated contracts, withheld royalties, and otherwise exploited the artists on his label. But Deal's claims go beyond bad business. If what he's saying is true, Diddy wasn't just looking out for his own interests. He was actively working to undermine the entire East Coast rap scene.
Now, I ain't trying to say that's some kind of conspiracy, and maybe some other was going on, or this, that, and the third. But brother, he had that conversation with K. Slade 2 weeks before he was.
One of the most heartbreaking parts of Deal's story is his claim that this conspiracy extended to the next generation of artists as well. He points to Pop Smoke, the Brooklyn rapper who was on the verge of becoming the next big thing in East Coast rap before his untimely demise. According to Deal, Pop Smoke represented a threat to the status quo, and there were forces in the industry that didn't want to see him succeed. Deal even claims that legendary DJ K. Slay warned Pop Smoke's team to be extra vigilant, telling them you're going to have to protect him with your life. Just weeks later, Pop Smoke was gone. While there's no evidence to suggest that Diddy or Jay-Z had anything to do with it, Deal's comments highlight the dangers that come with trying to shake up the industry.
It has to be a 100% culture shock. I can't imagine living a lifestyle of the incredibly rich and famous and then going into this very dark, impersonal, cold, austere facility.
Of course, not everyone is buying what Deal is selling. Critics have pointed out that he's been out of the spotlight for years and may have his own reasons for making these claims now. Others argue that his story is too far-fetched to be true, pointing out that Diddy and Jay-Z have both been instrumental in shaping the careers of countless artists. Yet the fact remains that many of the artists Deal mentioned, Cameron, Beanie Sigel, and even Pop Smoke, faced significant obstacles in their careers. Whether those obstacles were the result of a deliberate conspiracy or just the natural challenges of the music industry is up for debate.
The housing unit is a 24-hour lockdown unit, which means that any movement within that unit is controlled and coordinated, and no inmate moves outside of his cell without being in full restraints, to include leg irons, handcuffs, a belly chain, and at least 2, if not 3 staff members escorted.
What's not up for debate is the impact these allegations are having on Diddy and Jay-Z's legacies. Both men have spent decades building their brands, not just as artists, but as entrepreneurs and cultural icons. They've been celebrated for their achievements and held up as examples of what's possible when talent and ambition meet opportunity. But if Deal's claims are true, their success may have come at a cost, and that cost was the careers of other talented artists who never got their chance to shine.
You know, I think in federal court and for these charges, they would say it's routine, but in the public realm, this is very significant, just from who we associate Diddy being and everything we've seen him do over the decades. Like you said, this is quite the downfall to go from, I mean, we saw the mansions back in March that were raided by the feds. So to go from living in those mansions to being in.
As the story continues to unfold, one thing is clear. The world of hip-hop is far more complex and far more cutthroat than most of us ever imagined. Whether or not Diddy and Jay-Z were really working to suppress East Coast rap, their actions have had a profound impact on the industry. And as more people come forward with their own stories, we may finally get a clear picture of what was really going on behind the scenes. This brings us to the bigger question. If the industry was willing to go to such lengths to control the narrative of East Coast rap, what else have they been hiding, and who else might have been involved? Because if there's one thing we've learned from this saga, it's that in the world of hip-hop, nothing is ever quite as it seems. Let's dive even deeper into this tangled web of power, betrayal, and manipulation, because trust me, what comes next makes the first part seem almost tame. Now that we've peeled back the curtain on the alleged plot between Diddy and Jay-Z to suppress East Coast rap, it's time to connect the dots between these accusations and the infamous East Coast-West Coast feud. This wasn't just about music, it was about control, power, and the lengths some people would go to stay on top. And if Gone Deal's claims have even a grain of truth, then the story of the East Coast-West Coast feud is far more sinister than we could have imagined.
You say today's indictment reads like a mob indictment. What was most shocking to you of all these allegations?
Yeah, the fact, Jake, that the government in this indictment presented evidence alleging that Sean Combs was running a criminal enterprise.
Let's rewind to the mid-1990s. The East Coast-West Coast rivalry was in full swing, with Biggie representing New York and Shakur flying the flag for California. It was a clash of styles, personalities, and ideologies, but it quickly spiraled into something much darker. According to rumors that have swirled for decades, this wasn't just a natural rivalry. It was fueled by people behind the scenes who stood to benefit from the chaos. And here's where things get interesting. Deal claims that Diddy, who was at the peak of his career with Bad Boy Records, wasn't just a bystander in this feud. He may have been one of the key players pulling the strings. Now, Diddy has always denied any involvement in the tragic events of that era, but let's take a closer look at the accusations. In the years since Shakur's passing, various sources, including former detectives and insiders, have pointed fingers at Diddy. One of the most explosive claims came from Dwayne "Kef D" Davis, a former gang member who has alleged that Diddy offered him a large sum of money to carry out a hit on both Shakur and Suge Knight. Kef D has claimed this multiple times, including in interviews and his 2019 memoir. According to him, Diddy was desperate to eliminate his West Coast rivals and was willing to go to extreme lengths to make it happen.
The only man currently facing murder charges in the case, Dwayne "Kef D" Davis, claims that Sean Combs, also known as Diddy, paid for a hit on Tupac.
But why would Diddy allegedly take things this far? Deal's theory sheds some light on this. If Diddy was working to suppress East Coast talent, it's not hard to imagine that he'd also see Shakur and Suge Knight as threats to his empire. After all, Suge Knight wasn't just another record executive. Death Row Records was dominating the charts, and Shakur was a global superstar. If the rumors are true, Diddy might have seen their success as an obstacle to his own ambitions, especially if he was trying to maintain control over the rap game.
Right now, Davis is fighting for bail ahead of his trial, which he has pleaded no.
Forget the infamous 1995 Source Awards, which many people see as the moment the East Coast-West Coast feud went from being a behind-the-scenes issue to a full-blown public war. Suge Knight, in one of the most iconic moments in hip-hop history, took the stage and called out Diddy without mentioning his name. Any artist out there that want to be an artist and want to stay a star and don't want to have to worry about the executive producer all in the videos, all on the records, dancing, come to death row. The crowd erupted, and just like that, the rivalry was out in the open. Diddy responded by calling for unity, but behind the scenes, the tension only grew. And here's where things get murkier. According to several sources, including Deal, what started as a professional rivalry quickly became personal. The accusations about Diddy's alleged involvement in the Las Vegas incident that took Shocker's life have never been proven, but they've persisted for decades. And then there's the fact that just 6 months later, Biggie met a similar fate in Los Angeles. Some say it was retaliation. Others claim it was part of a larger conspiracy. What's undeniable is that these events left a permanent scar on hip-hop and raised questions that remain unanswered to this day.
As far as, is he going to turn people in? Is he going to cooperate? If the federal government wants him to cooperate and they're going to cut his time, because right now he's looking at 15 to life. With all the charges he had to, he won't get out till 70 years old. He about 70. That's when they start talking about letting him come to a halfway house.
But let's bring Jay-Z back into the picture, because his role in all of this is just as fascinating and just as controversial. While Diddy was allegedly dealing with his West Coast rivals, Jay-Z was rising through the ranks, positioning himself as the king of New York. But according to rumors, his ascent wasn't entirely organic. There are whispers that Jay-Z may have benefited from the chaos of the East Coast-West Coast feud, using it as an opportunity to solidify his own position. And then there are the allegations from Deal and others that Jay-Z was actively working to suppress other East Coast artists, ensuring that he remained at the top.
Sean had to take responsibility for what he did as an individual. Sean is the one who pulled that gun out. Sean is the one who shot. So he has to take responsibility for that.
It's worth noting that Jay-Z has always been careful about his public image. Unlike Diddy, who has often been at the center of controversy, Jay has managed to avoid most scandals, at least until recently. But Deal's claims paint a different picture. According to him, Jay-Z's calculated moves behind the scenes weren't just about business. They were about ensuring that no one could challenge his dominance. And if that meant keeping other talented artists down, so be it.
Jay-Z got his ass whooped by his sister-in-law on camera. What's her name? Solange. You got his ass. The feds ain't step in and do nothing. The feds don't care about you getting your ass whooped.
One artist who has spoken out about Jay-Z's alleged tactics is Dame Dash, his former business partner at Rockefeller Records. In interviews, Dash has accused Jay of prioritizing his own interests over the success of the label's other artists. He's even suggested that Jay might have sabotaged some careers to protect his own. While Dash's comments could be dismissed as the bitterness of a former partner, they align with some of the claims Deal has made. And when you look at the careers of artists like Beanie Siegel and Cameron, it's hard not to wonder if there's some truth to these allegations. But what about the other players in this story? According to Deal, this wasn't just about Diddy and Jay-Z. It was part of a larger effort by the music industry to shift focus away from the East Coast entirely. And when you look at the rise of Southern rap in the early 2000s, it's clear that something big was happening. Artists like Lil Wayne, T.I., and Outkast were dominating the charts while East Coast rap seemed to fade into the background. Was this a natural evolution of the genre, or was it part of a calculated plan? Deal's claims suggest the latter, and if he's right, then the East Coast-West Coast feud was just the beginning.
Understand? I think that they don't want, if they was in any of those freak-off tapes, if they played a part in any of those Diddy sessions, they don't want it to get out to the general public to make up their brand.
One of the most chilling parts of Deal's story is his claim that these tactics didn't end with the 1990s. According to him, the same forces that worked to suppress East Coast rap back then are still active today. And when you look at the challenges faced by modern East Coast artists, it's hard not to see some parallels. Pop Smoke, for example, was on the verge of becoming the next big thing in East Coast rap before his tragic demise. Deal believes that Pop Smoke represented a threat to the status quo, and while there's no evidence to support this theory, it's a reminder of how much is at stake in the world of hip-hop.
And we do have some breaking news that we want to bring to you. It was being reported by TMZ and now Fox News. We are learning that Jay-Z is accused of a 13-year-old girl. That is new in the Diddy lawsuit.
And then there's the ongoing fallout from these allegations. Diddy is currently facing a wave of lawsuits and criminal charges, while Jay-Z has been named in a high-profile lawsuit that has raised serious questions about his past. Both men have denied the allegations against them, but the damage to their reputations is already done. Whether or not these claims are true, they've sparked a conversation about the darker side of the music industry and the lengths some people will go to protect their power. So, where does this leave us? Are Diddy and Jay-Z the villains of this story? Or are they scapegoats for a much larger problem? The truth is, we may never know, but what's clear is that the world of hip-hop is far more complex and cutthroat than most of us could have imagined. And as more people come forward with their own stories, the picture only gets murkier. As we wrap up this deep dive into the alleged conspiracies and power struggles within the world of hip-hop, it's clear that the story is far from over. The claims made by Deal raise serious questions about the roles of Diddy and Jay-Z in shaping the East Coast rap scene. But what do you think? Were Diddy and Jay-Z truly masterminds behind a scheme to control the industry, or are they being unfairly targeted? And if there is truth to these allegations, who else might be involved in this tangled web of manipulation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The conversation is just getting started. Until next time, stay tuned for more revelations and insights into the world of celebrity gossip. Goodbye for now.